So one of the first taxa that we're going to look at here is Petromyzon, the lamprey. And I've already started dissecting this a little bit, so we can kind of put it back together a little bit. This is what a lamprey looks like. You can see, obviously, normally they wouldn't have the dissection that I've already started. They would look more like this side. That's more whole. This is a sea lamprey. They're a lot larger than some of the other individuals within this family, Petromyzontidae. The other species that are within this one might include things like the chestnut lamprey or the brook lamprey, which are maybe at the most 8 inches long, so they're much smaller. Most individuals within Petromyzontidae are feeding on vegetation, and they're filtering things off of or scraping things off of rocks on stream beds. So if we looked in some of our very clean and pristine streams and creeks in our own backyards here in Pennsylvania, we might find things like the chestnut lamprey, which are harmless to us. They're actually a great indicator of health to these streams, and they feed on things within the streams. This individual is not one of those individuals. This is a sea lamprey, Petromyzontidae, or Petromyzon is the genus of this individual. And these individuals are found out in typically marine landscapes. They're also found in the Great Lakes here in North America. And they are more or less parasitic, endoparasites, where they will attach themselves to other organisms, fish, even maybe somebody swimming, a human being, for example. This has been accounted for before. And they will attach using this mouth that's more or less like a suction cup. And we'll talk more about the external anatomy later, but it's a rasping tongue that will start to rasp away at the side of that organism. The purpose is not to kill the organism, but to cause it to start to bleed, and then it feeds upon the blood and tissue of the organism. So this here, that's a little bit of background on the lamprey, Petromyzon. And what we're interested right now is the more or less axial skeleton running down the length of this organism. As I mentioned in the previous video, this is a cartilaginous skeleton, and if we were to cut this individual in such a way where I cut lengthwise down the body from the anterior to the posterior region, and then I did kind of a pseudo cross section right there along the body. If I just take this section here, what we're looking at, this larger structure, is the notochord. This is that fluid-filled sac that runs down the length of the body. That fluid, I just kind of drew within it a little bit with my probe. I'm not talking about a fluid like water. It's thicker than that, obviously. But this is that notochord that's providing rigidity to the organism. Dorsal to that, you can see, especially if I were to bring this a little closer and kind of bend this, you might be able to see that there's a gap towards the dorsal region of this organism. This gap up here, where my probe is now, is the dorsal hollow nerve cord. If I turn this towards the cross-sectional view, let's look at it like as if this is the dorsal region. Oops, sorry, let's turn that around so it's better for you guys. This is the dorsal region, and this is the ventral region. Here's the notochord, and above the notochord here would be the dorsal hollow nerve cord. Block some of that light, it might be a little bit easier to see. I think I have another section of this that might look a little bit better. I have a bucket of fun stuff here at the bottom. So this is a little bit better. This is more towards the caudal region of the individual. And you can see here I have this clear disc looking type structure that my probe is pointing at. Let's try to get it closer. This is the notochord. This is the dorsal hollow nerve cord. My probe is in the dorsal hollow nerve cord. You can see that hollow formation of it. This is a complete cross-sectional view. This is intestines. Don't worry about that, we're not there yet. Once again, here's my notochord. Dorsal to that, my dorsal hollow nerve cord. If I really tease things out, you may be able to see the arculia around the dorsal hollow nerve cord, but remember, it's very disjunct. Look at your textbook. It's not surrounding the entire dorsal hollow nerve cord. It's just in little tiny sections throughout. So it's really hard to dissect that out. We had it at one time somewhere, but it's so fragile you just lose it right away. So that's Petromyzon, and we'll move on next to our next taxa.